This is Tyler Lewis here with Phenom Hoops. We're honored today to have one of the best high school coaches in North Carolina, George Marshall. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, coach, how you doing?
I'm doing well. You were the head coach at Henderson Collegiate for 4 years. You've been at the school since 2011. In a short amount of time, you've been able to build a program that's been really successful coming off a state championship. How do you bring that momentum from last year into this year?
I think that a lot of that starts with our senior class. Guys like Javante and Chris and Akiris, they've really been varsity players for 4 straight years, and I know that that's a pretty rare thing. But when you're starting a program like we did 4 years ago, they didn't really have a choice. I mean, ideally, they would have been in a situation where they would have been able to be on a JV team for a while, would have been able to be groomed and developed the same way that they've been in other programs across the country. But for us, they had to mature really quickly. And so a lot of the intensity that we bring in practice comes from our senior leadership, a few of whom will, I presume, be captains for the team this year. But it's been really great to see. We're very happy to be playing basketball at all right now. And so for us, that's kind of the biggest thing that's motivating us to start the season.
And you talked about, I mean, obviously right now it's very unique times with COVID going on. I know you guys only have 20% in school right
Yep.
now. And how difficult has it been for you guys to just get started with practice, get started with workouts? How has that been for you guys? And how has it been? How have you been able to fight through that adversity to get where you want to be?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest struggle, to be candid, and you see this across the state right now, there have been some great articles written recently about academics and about the challenges that students face in online learning, specifically in communities like Henderson and like Vance County and other counties very similar. It's been really hard. Coronavirus has hit rural communities really hard, whether it be health wise, whether it be academically, whether it would be, just general experiences and getting on a court or on a field or doing something that students love. It's been really tough. But I think for us, the biggest thing that we're preaching to our guys right now is just consistency. And that is honestly the hardest part about quarantine and the coronavirus is developing a level of consistency. It's hard to be consistent in the classroom when you're not in front of a teacher. It's hard to be consistent with workout attendance when at any moment you could be around someone with coronavirus. And then for 2 weeks, you need to be quarantined to make sure that you're safe and you're healthy and your family's healthy. So we really, and I know that other programs are battling this too. We struggle to get 100% like we normally would for any given workout in our preseason skill development time. But now what we're seeing and what we believe is going to happen once our grades come out on Thursday is that we're going to be able to get back to a level of consistency that we think is befitting of our program. Last year, we were consistent at an elite level. A lot of our kids play AAU ball together. They played all throughout the summer together, and then they kept that momentum rolling into the season. So we benefited greatly from that. This year, we didn't have any of that. So one of the things that I have to check myself on often, because as a coach, you're coming off this extremely successful year, and there are times when you expect it to just roll over, and it doesn't. What you have to do, and what I think my coaching staff has done really well, is we've preached consistency, and they check me on being patient to make sure that I have the bigger picture within the pandemic in mind. And I've appreciated them for that a lot.
No, that's awesome. And then obviously you brought up the word consistency a lot throughout the that answer. Also, another thing that kind of stood out to me that makes basketball so important during these crazy times is you mentioned online classes
Yep.
and people not getting the same social interactions that they would. And I think basketball kind of brings people together in that way. So they're able to, be with one another even during these crazy times. I mean, you can still be, and it's hard to be 6 feet apart in basketball, but you can do it during workouts and it still gives them the chance to, you know, see their friends, get outside themselves, and do what they love. And my next question goes into how do you see that senior class that you sort of mentioned before with their leadership abilities? Because this year, We know great teams are normally always player driven, and they're normally led with players. How do you see your senior class right now leading during these crazy times?
Well, I think that vocal leadership has been something that we've really stressed throughout the off season, and we've got guys, not necessarily the first three that I mentioned, but other seniors as well who have done a great job with that. Josh A. Hart is a big that we have. He's 6'6". He's going to be a pretty elite post defender for us this season and rebounder. And every single practice, he's one of the loudest people in the gym, telling people what they need to do better, emphasizing effort. Javante Waverly is someone who's really taken on more of a vocal leadership role. And then we've got players like Chris Franklin, who I always appreciate Chris because he kind of takes it as, if I'm talking to you, knowing what I've been through, you need to listen. Like, don't take it personally. Don't take it as me coming down hard on you. Take it as I'm a senior and I've been through and been to what you're trying to get to. So I know from experience what this takes. But all of them have done really well with that. It's very rare that I have to check them on energy or vocal leadership, but they do a really good job as a team, and specifically as a class of 2021 at making sure that we're on the right track, which has been really exciting and I think is going to play a huge role in our success this season.
For sure, and it makes your job a lot easier when you have
Yeah.
three seniors that can speak up. They're vocal. They lead by example as well, and then they hold each other accountable with the energy part. Because nothing's worse for a coach than when you have to coach energy and effort.
Yep, that's right.
Um,
100%.
and a player doesn't need any skill to play hard.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
Last year you lost a really good player, and I see it's kind of the Queen stuff in the background.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'll do a little turn here so that people can see it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
there we go. And Caleb Matthews. How do you feel like you're going to replace his role this year?
I mean, not with one player. I think that it's one of those situations, and we've talked a little bit about this as a team, but you can't replace Caleb's production with one person. It's not going to be possible. I mean, Caleb averaged 19 points a game, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. He's 1,000-point scorer in 2 years at our school. There's so many things that he did well. He was the person we could put on the other team's best player every game in the state playoffs. So when people saw his stats point-wise decline in the state playoffs, everyone was talking about, oh, well, we don't know if he's this or he's that. No, he's guarding the other team's best player. He's holding most of them to under 10 points. He held one of them to 2 points. Like, he is an elite player that I think is going to do amazing things at Queens. And I've loved being able to watch him so far this year. It's his story with his first couple games having to play D1s was so awesome. What an incredible way to start a career. But we're going to have to replace him in the aggregate. I mean, we're going to have, if Caleb made, I think, 82 3-pointers last season. No one person is going to make 82 3-pointers to replace his production. We're going to have Vontae be a better shooter. We're going to have Chris Franklin come in and make a couple. We're going to have 2 players who are seniors who are going to be significant role players for us, Omaj Evans and Caleb Royster. They're going to have to be confident. The guys coming up from JV, TJ Ragland and Jaden Whitaker, they're going to have to come in and be shooters. And so when we talk about that and replacing his rebounding and his defense, a lot of that is just going to come through selflessness and understanding that no one person is just going to take the 19, 5, and 5 that Caleb did and do it. It's not going to happen. But I do think that with the way that we're playing team basketball right now and what I've seen in our little, we can do very minimal full court pickup stuff within the guidelines of the High School Athletic Association. But when we do that, just in what I've seen, I think that we're in a place where we can replace them and find our identity in that way.
Yeah, and then once the guidelines hopefully loosen up a little bit, you'll be able to get these guys playing 5-on-5, going up and down the court. And, I think this year is very unique in a way that skills, like working on someone's skill, is going to be just as important because you're not going to have that 5-on-5 team practice the whole time. How have you done working on people's how do you work on player skill set in practice or right now?
I mean, we do 30 minutes a day, and what we like to do is break it into two 15-minute sessions, sometimes longer than that. But typically, we only really practice for an hour and a half. After seeing the workouts that we were doing, um, my coaching staff and I identified some areas that we think kids could really improve within the context of what we like to run in our offense and the motion that we run. Um, and I think that at the beginning of the year, we honestly tried to coach them, and I tried to coach them like they were last year's team, and they weren't. And that's something that as a young coach is a big learning experience, because you can't coach every team the same way. It's just not possible. So what we'll do is the first 5 minutes of our practice is all form shooting and all game shots. So we set up in our gym. I mean, a lot of people know our story. We don't have a gym. We don't have a weight room. So in our, cafeteria gym, we wheeled in an outdoor goal and set it up on the side. So now we have 3 baskets. And now what we'll do during form shooting is it's all the shots you're shooting in a game. So for example, what Caleb Royster, who's going to be a great contributor for our team this year, does, he starts close, makes about 10 to 20, make sure that he's swishing it, make sure his arc is good, take a step back, work on his mid-range, take a step back, work on his one dribble pull up and his 3-pointers. And that's just the first 5 minutes of practice. So ideally in the first 5 minutes, most kids, their goal is to make 50 shots. If they're making 50 shots, we feel good about that time. Then we'll break that into stations. So the stations will be based on things like ball handling, 3-point shooting. And our offense, we really like to have a great ball movement. So pass and cut, give and go, backdoor cuts, whatever the case may be, to catch teams sleeping. And we practice all that. The pass, honestly, is more important right now than the layup, because a lot of kids who have not played in games are not used to making a crisp bounce pass that's going to lead to someone scoring the ball. So we've been working a lot on that. Then we break down some things in fast break drills, and then we'll get into split guard and big drills, which is something I've never done before, but the third goal certainly helps a ton. It makes me very envious of teams that have 6 goals in their gym that can do a lot of different things. But it's been great to see our bigs, specifically Jared Small and Josh A. Hart, get really in-depth like footwork practice and finishing with both hands, because we've got this other goal. So while guards might be doing finishing through off 2 feet, the bigs are working on finishing left hand, right hand, different finishes at the goal, et cetera, et cetera. But we prioritize it every day, mostly because we have to within the guidelines. So that's been a blessing. The next step is how do they translate that to games?
That's awesome. And I know as much as you want to have 6 goals or whatever, um, you don't complain about it.
No, you can't. Yeah.
You make the most of what you have. I think you're very thankful for what you have, and
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
that speaks volume for who you are, because everybody wants to have the best stuff, or you want to have that, but not all the time you need it. I mean,
Mhm.
like you said, you got a roll away goal, and it works just the same.
Yep.
Um, it may not look the sexiest out there, but it gets the job done.
Absolutely.
And then another thing that led to that I really liked was you said the bounce pass into a layup. The pass is more important. A great pass leads normally to makeable shots.
Yep, that's right.
Um, so, and my next question gets into it. Obviously, I think you teach a lot of skills. You teach a lot of fundamentals, and only having the program started for 4 years, is that those things that you taught every year that help the program become so successful?
Yeah, I think that really that's where everything has to start. You can have all the athletes in the world, but in the modern era of basketball, if you can't shoot, you're essentially a dinosaur. When I think about the great teams that we played last year, pretty much every single one, I think about Wesley and Christian, or I think about Greenfield, like they got guys that can just knock down tough shots and can knock down shots and just in rhythm. Um, and so for us, it's been very important for our kids to work on that. But I think that what you're seeing is as they gain confidence with it, The fundamentals are kind of taking over the game. We never practice, never, ever, ever practice multi-dribble combo moves. Some kids have the talent for it. TJ Ragland comes to mind. He's probably going to be one of our starting guards this year. He's great in space and can really like handle the rock, but he's best downhill when he can just do one or two dribble, jump stop, get into contact and finish. And so every single thing that we do fundamentally is under 3 dribbles. And we believe that that's going to translate to games really well. Whenever we're in an offensive set, you'll see me yelling at them literally after the 3rd dribble, like move it, like move the ball, stop holding the rock. And I think the kids have really bought into that well, and they're starting to see the rewards of it when we're able to do our brief up and down time on the court.
Well, obviously, it's nice to have the combo moves here and there, but in order to beat teams, you got to be able to move the ball.
Yep.
The best teams in college basketball, best teams in high school, even the pros, like the best teams move the ball. Like they have great facilitators. They're always the team that ends up with the most assists at the end of the game.
That's right. That's right.
So when these kids learn that at an early age, it just helps them out in the long term, and it helps them trust one another, because if they're able to make the right play, right pass, each person's going to shine.
That's
I think that's what makes you guys so special, especially last year. Obviously, you have probably one of the most gifted passers on your team.
Yep.
And I think that helps out in a lot, because especially Javante, he doesn't have to score the ball to be productive.
That's right. That's right.
And people love playing with those type of guys who just love sharing the ball. And I think that helps you out and your team out in the long run.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Did you always see yourself getting into coaching?
Honestly, I think about that a lot, and I think the answer initially is no. I've had a very unique career path. So I was a 2011 Teach for America Corps member in Eastern North Carolina. I was really blessed to be placed. My placement school was Henderson Collegiate. So my first role was literally a PE teacher when the school only had 4th and 5th graders. And I was an EC teacher working with a small group of kids in a math class that was actually taught by my wife. So she will claim up and down that she never had like ill will towards me, but I know the first year she knew me that was not the case, because I was in her classroom every single day as a teacher that wasn't very good and was probably young and a little too confident. But after teaching, once sports got started at our school, when kids were in the graduating class of 2019 was in the 7th and 8th grade, I really started to love it. I wish that I had known the areas to navigate to advance in that career field faster. But I think that it just speaks to the journey of our school in general, that that your journey is the right journey for you. And so from our standpoint, I think that now, and from my standpoint rather, I couldn't be more in love with the profession. It's what I want to do with the rest of my life. It's how I feel like I can best reach our community and students in our community. And I think that it's going to be an exciting journey, but it took me a while. My journey, I think, as a coach is a little bit different from many other coaches who are great in our state. And I also know that I have to catch up as a result of that, because there's so many people that I have to learn from that, I really benefit from living in the hoop state for that reason. I can watch a guy like Jeff McGinnis on the sideline and take away from the way that he coaches. I can watch Ryan Bernardi at TBS. I can watch any number of the great college coaches, whether it be at Central or Duke or NC State or wherever the case may be, and just pick up little things. But I think that within my journey, because it's been unique, I've had to learn more quickly so that I can catch up to a lot of those guys. But it's been a great journey, man, and I don't see it changing anytime soon.
That is really special, especially with kind of like the two coaches that you kind of mentioned. They're really great high school coaches, and they're tremendous. And to be able to learn from other people around this state, And I feel like just the people in North Carolina, the hoop state, they want to see like each individual person succeed. Like obviously they want to win games, but you really feel like that sense of like care for one another. And I think that's what makes this area so special in a way. You
Absolutely.
and you mentioned being at Henderson Collegiate from the start, your first job, Henderson Collegiate.
That's right.
So what makes your school so special to you?
I think that for me, it is an emphasis on serving a low income community and having the expectation that 100% of our students will not only graduate high school, but graduate from the college of their choice. So for the last two graduating classes, 100% of our students they've been accepted to four-year universities. Last year, the graduating class of 2020 totaled over $7.5 million in academic scholarships earned. And I think that what makes Henderson Collegiate so special is that that's always going to be a priority. When the ball stops bouncing, which will happen eventually, kids don't ever think it's going to happen, but it is going to happen. They need to be able to rely on the fact that they've got an excellent academic background so that they can be successful in whatever it is they choose to be successful in. Some of them may go into basketball as coaches or trainers or whatnot. Some of them may be accountants. Some of them may be doctors. I don't know. But I do know that their academics is more important than anything else that they do on the court. And what's been so amazing about basketball is I think that sometimes people see the two, athletics and academics, as mutually exclusive when they're not. Uh, I can attest to our team specifically. When we started preseason skill development, our team was really struggling academically. Quarter one was really hard. It wasn't just hard for Henderson Collegiate students, it was hard across the state for students to get acclimated to online learning. But since that time that we started skill development, 100% of our players have improved their grade point average, even players that were already at a 3.6. And so I think that for people that kind of question whether or not sports should be going on, that's hard data to argue, where this sense of brotherhood and this sense of camaraderie and this sense of striving for something together leads you to improving your own habits so that you can be your most successful self. And for our players to be able to do that, I think it speaks volumes to them and their character. And I also think it speaks volumes to the school, because that's something that we're always going to value and prioritize. But to see students who are going from, a low 2 GPA to now being in the upper threes because they're fighting for something that they want, not only to be a part of the team, but knowing the mission that we're on, it's been awesome. And I think that, I'm very blessed to work at a place like this for that reason.
For sure, that's awesome that you're able to be there and make such an impact, and they made an impact on your life as well. Um,
Absolutely.
who has been some of the biggest role models, impacts in your short coaching career, and just who've been some of your role models just in the person that you are today?
Absolutely. I think that my work ethic wise, it starts with my dad. I don't know someone that works harder than him. He's he's a very funny person to interact with because he's so direct and by the book, but his work ethic is unmatched. And that's something that I've really appreciated being able to learn from him. Coaching specifically, I was blessed to be coached at the high school level at Sidwell Friends School in Washington, D.C. by Dwayne Simpkins, who is now the associate head coach at George Mason. He was very hard nosed, very old school, but he and I still stay in touch to this day. I actually went to work at George Mason's camp last summer because of my connection with Dwayne and his family. And he's been someone that has always been a helping hand whenever I've needed it. I think that, there's great coaches across the state who have been really helpful. Bart Lundy and his staff, Grant Leonard, Brian Steele, when they were all at Queens together, were so tremendously helpful whenever I needed a word of advice or a different situation or how to handle something different in a game. Nigel Thomas at North Carolina Central, who I feel has just always been everywhere, even back when he was at North Carolina Wesleyan. He and I spoke together and arranged a trip for him to talk to our guys before a game. And that whole experience was really fantastic, seeing him coach. And really, there's just so many guys that I've taken bits and pieces of what they know to make my own. And again, you said it best, Tyler, that within this state, it's a very special situation in North Carolina because there are so many people to learn from. But I think that it's a situation where every day I feel like I have to get better because of those people. I feel like I wouldn't be doing them justice, or I'd be doing them a disservice if I didn't work my hardest to be able to get to where they are. And that's something that motivates me every single day.
Well, going back from like being a player to, in order to to be the best, you got to play the best. And like in the coaching, like if you want to be the best coach, like obviously you're going to learn from those guys, but you want to beat them at the same time. So you want to coach against them as well and beat them on the court. As much respect as you have for those guys coaching, what people they are, you still have that fire in you that, hey,
absolutely.
I'm just as good as you are. So no, that's spectacular. I feel like you're going to have a lot of accolades when you're retire and you're done with coaching. But how do you really want to be remembered as a head coach?
I think it's all about the impact you had in players' lives. I want players to graduate from college. I want to be invited to their weddings. I want to be there when, they need advice when they're older. The trophies and stuff, like all that stuff, and the rings and things of that nature, all of that is great. But I just don't think that it's as important as helping kids understand the importance of their habits and being good people. For me, I actually think that the two are directly aligned, that, within the situation we had last year, we had a really talented team, but that team was full of great kids, many of whom are on to bigger and better things in college, not necessarily as student athletes, but as players, or excuse me, not necessarily as student athletes, but as students rather. But I think that that's the biggest thing is if they look back and they see that there was a difficult situation in their life, but I knew how to navigate it because I had a coach or coaching staff who was able to help me learn at a young age how to do that. That's the biggest thing to me, is helping kids. I'm hoping that when I retire long down the road, that's something that I can celebrate with them, is how much of an impact I had on their lives and the great young men that they became as a result of that.
No, and I know you're going to continue to make impacts on each of your players and students' lives. And I know you're going to continue to do great things at Henderson Collegiate, and you're going to be the person that they invite to their wedding, ask for advice. You're going to be that person.
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, there's no doubt. My last question for you, Coach, is what is your guys' mission statement? What does Henderson Collegiate basketball program or school this is their motto?
Yeah, I mean, for us, the mission statement of Henderson Collegiate is all about building the character traits to be world-changing citizens. So for us, there's a lot of emphasis as a school on 100% to and through college, because we know how much life trajectories can change by earning a college degree. For the basketball team specifically, I actually have thought a lot about this, but when I went on a visit to Averett with Akyrus Holden, who was granted an opportunity to further his playing career there, their AD had a great slogan that I really appreciated. And she called it the 3-2-1 motto. All of her student athletes at Averett, she wants to have a 3.0 GPA. She wants them to be the top 2 team in the conference. And she wants them to believe in the values of one Averett. And at Henderson Collegiate, we've adopted the same thing. We want all of our student athletes, and I want all of our players to have at least a 3.0 grade point average, because that's going to put them on a path to attend and graduate from really competitive colleges that can totally change their life outcomes. We want to be top 2 in the conference. And to be honest, every single year that I'm here, we're going to have the goal of winning a state championship. And I think sometimes people have asked me like, well, doesn't that put a target on your back? Well, of course it does, but that doesn't matter.
You
To
want the
me,
target on your back.
yeah, exactly. It's like, I don't understand why you would coach without that goal, because to me, we state it overtly so that we can reach our potential. I'm a realist. I know that every year we're not going to win, 40 straight state championships. That's not possible. It's just not going to happen. But I don't believe that a team can reach their full potential unless you're striving to be the absolute best. If we strive to be the best and we fall short, well, that's fine. We can learn from that and we can hold our heads high at the end of the season through heartache and whatever the case may be. But if we're not pushing to be the best, then I don't know what we're doing this for. So our goal is always going to be the top team in the state. And we're unapologetic about that. And if that means that people want to beat us or it makes their season by beating us, well, we have to live with those outcomes as they come. And then the last one I think is really one of the more important ones, which is this idea of one pride or one Henderson Collegiate. We want our guys to be supportive of every single team and every single student in the school. I think that there's a stereotype often about a student athlete that they're jocks or they take lesser classes or, they're not supportive and that people kind of worship them at school and this and that. I don't want any of that to be true. I want our kids to take harder classes. Our juniors specifically at minimum take 2 AP classes at our school. And I love that. Even if they're not ready for it, I love it because it challenges them and it pushes them to be the best students they can be. But more culturally as a school, I want them to be the people who speak up in classes and who are great partners on projects and who speak up whenever there's a full school moment or there's a full grade level moment in front of 100 kids, because that demonstrates leadership that's going to help them throughout the course of the rest of their lives. And it also demonstrates support so that if they're supporting a soccer team or they're supporting a band performance, whenever coronavirus ends, we know those same students who felt supported are going to come and support us. And that's how you build this one school community that we really value. I think that the team and athletics in general play a huge role in that. And so the 3-2-1 model, I think, is something we've adopted well, and our kids have really bought into to start the school year.
Yeah, well, that 3-2-1 model is really special, and I know you guys try to live by it as much as possible. And then obviously that 3-2-1 model is going to help you at the end of the year, 3-2-1 state champions.
That's right. Hopefully, well, that's the goal, right? That's the goal. We have a long way to go to get to that point, but
Yeah, I mean,
I love the way that our team is trending right now. I think that the unity that we're building in practice has been fantastic, and every day I'm seeing new kids take steps in their game, and that's what coaching is all about. It's hard. I think it's impossible not to see that and love that. So that's been a great part of what we've been able to do so far.
for sure. And Coach, I just want to thank you so much for coming on here today. I really appreciate it. Good luck the rest of the way, and I can't wait to see you guys back in action here pretty soon.
Appreciate that, man. Thank you so much for having me. This is great.
No problem. Thank you.